Welcome to the Meaningful Work Podcast Fireside Chat, a more relaxed, deep conversation with this week's guest. So grab a coffee, a cigar, or whatever gives you the feels, and get ready to laugh and learn. Here's your host, Josh Schneider.
Now it's time for the Fireside Chat. Kevin, honestly, we've known each other for a little while. As I said on the front end, there's been a level of discipline and execution on your part that I've admired. It was interesting. I obviously I take notes for the show notes or take notes for what are some actionable items that we can use for social media, from the interview. But it was really interesting hearing you talk through, what it is that you have. I almost saw like this little arsenal of tools that you've built for you that allow you to show up to the sales process with high energy, focus, intention. And I've never saw it this way, but it almost, and I guess I'm going to bounce this to you and you, I almost saw it as though the challenge of sales is that yes, there's getting past the gatekeeper, there's getting in connection with the right people, there's all these other elements, but it was almost like you just show up in the most peak state, focused, diligent. You're like, I've got a quarter to get these things done. I guess, what do you think about that?
Well, it's being intentional, right? I don't want to just hang out and just kind of let life pass me by. I could sit on Facebook and scroll through that all day long. Facebook Marketplace, I can find, stuff to buy, but, you got to be intentional. I mean, you got to figure out what it is you really want to do and what just like totally creates you. Like me growing business and talking to people about business stuff, for me, it engages me. Like it just kicks me into high gear and I start revving up and I start talking about different things. With this coronavirus that came up, everybody had to shut down that had diners, right? I mean, I was leading people in Financial Peace University, which is a Dave Ramsey course, and I do it for free because it's just fun. It's another discipline. We do budgets every month. And when this hit up, we're like, okay, well, we're fine. We got an emergency fund. We're moving through it. But I talked to a gentleman who owned a diner and they had to shut down. And he's going, I have no money coming in. I just started this process. What could I do? So here's me sitting there talking to the guy going, hey, did you know how Gary Vee started? He said, no. I said, he was working in his parents' shop selling liquor and wine. And he had a little camera and he sat there and just went through different wines and he tasted them. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, this one had a great palatable taste. This one did this. This one, he's like, this one smells like a shoe. This one, and he talked to the common person.
Yeah.
And I said, what about doing some videos where you do like different kinds of mac and cheeses or grilled cheeses for kids that they would like with the different kind of cheeses you could do in there, throw jalapenos here, or how you could do something else. And he goes, oh my God. I go, you got all this time right now. Go for it. Go, you got a kitchen, right? And you're a cook. You know how to make the best chocolate chip cookies, right?
Right.
He goes, yeah. I'm like, what do you do different? Go tell everybody.
Okay. So there's that show, Diners, Drive-Ins and Dives, or that one in particular. And so he goes in and he interviews, and obviously there's a camera crew, and it has made me wonder, how many places do I drive by that maybe the way that they marinate their mushrooms or the care that they take into putting together the gyro meat, or like if you truly are good, you have these little tips and tricks and ways, and maybe it's how you smush the hamburger on the grill before you flip it. it's like you share that with me, and all of a sudden you stand out of the crowd. Why anytime I'm in a new city, I go to the website, and you can look up places that have been on these shows because I'm interested in that story, the nuance of why they do what they do. And I think it's that passion. When that passion comes through, it's like, well, why wouldn't I try and find a way to do business with you? Whether it's a sandwich, a Salisbury steak, like, I think that's, if your Salisbury steak, if I watch this stupid video and you talk about how you make your gravy for 72 hours on simmer, I'm like, I never wanted a Salisbury steak in my life, but like, you spend 72 hours on the gravy, I'm going to try it.
Yeah, it's part of the experience, right?
Yes.
People crave an experience. They don't crave, they don't crave a cheeseburger. They crave what's inside the cheeseburger and how it makes them feel.
Yes.
I'm actually a foodie. My wife actually says, you could do that, drive-in diners and dives and all that stuff. She goes, you could be that guy, because I am such a foodie. We were down in Florida at Christmas, and we went to a burger joint that just opened up, and they had a donut bacon cheeseburger.
Oh yeah.
And it sounds disgusting. But the glaze from the glazed donut actually just melts onto the donut, right? And the sugars bring out the peppered bacon a little bit more, because now it tastes like sugar bacon, right?
Yes.
So, and then
you get the doughy, you've got less bread getting in the way of all those other flavors.
So it's healthy. Less
it
carbs.
Is less bread. It's healthier.
So, it's experience, and people want the experience. So if you're giving them the experience, just like when you're up on keynoting, you're out there and the people are getting engaged, and they're like, yes, I want to learn more. And they dive deeper. And that's where you could bring out like a coaching thing or something else. And that's where people go and get books signed at all these events, right? And there you go. I just said it right again. They sign these books, and it's just because they want that experience, that they have that connection with the person that just spoke to them. Just like going into a restaurant, just like anything, people want that experience. And if you give them a great experience, like sales, you're building influence. I literally had customers coming to me when I was in Florida. I was selling stand-up riding lawnmowers, right? You basically stood on it like a chariot, and you're riding around like Ben-Hur cutting grass. And they started coming to me going, hey, can you help me with this software package I'm looking at buying, or this digital camera, or all these little things? They started asking me about this. And I go, what does that have to do with the lawnmowers? And it goes back to what, sales is influence, is basically the premise of my book. And that's what I learned from, the mentor that I had was, once you start getting a sale, you start building all this influence with people. And then they start buying from you more, just because they have that influence, that trust and everything. John Maxwell says, leadership is influence, nothing more than nothing less. So that's where I kind of pull together the fact that the sales process is actually compiled into leadership. You want to be a great leader, you better know how to sell. And that's what the guy who owned the business told me, is for me to have all these, he's got people that worked for him for 30 years. And it's because of that experience, because he's, giving in to them, and he's constantly helping them learn and grow. So that's what the customers, you help them learn, help them grow. They're going to constantly keep coming back to you because they want to keep growing. That's why John Maxwell is huge now, right?
Yeah. So it's interesting because and maybe, food obviously excites me, and having worked in the industry for so many years, it's like I can relate to that example, and I can see the experience of a guest. I can see it so simply, so easily. And I think too, although I would say, especially when I got into fine dining, if somebody had a bad experience, I felt it in my heart. Like I felt, even though it was only a couple $100, in comparison to a $20,000 piece of equipment, it's still, and probably because I had appreciation for going out to eat, that I wanted everybody to feel as though they were honored by spending their money. I don't know for sure, but I think $500 is probably the most I've ever spent on a meal for my wife and I. And I can remember a couple particular meals that were in that $250, $300 range that I felt like I robbed the restaurant. Like I got this experience for only now $300 is a lot of money, right? Versus there's $5 sandwiches that I've gotten that it's like I've not even finished. How is it that I feel like I robbed a restaurant at $300, yet $5 or $2 or a 99-cent bag of chips? You're just like, this is garbage. Like where did you think that this was okay? And it's like, for me, it's so easy to see those experiences and not connect it to the big picture of sales or corporate selling, or when we're talking about really big contracts. And what's sparking me is it's all human. It's human to human. Like though it's easy for me to identify with a $15 pulled pork sandwich and that, like, listen, bro, you didn't like it, I'll take it off the bill, we'll get you something else, versus a $1.5 million piece of equipment. But in reality, it's kind of like the same thing.
It is. You're dealing. So everybody gets caught up in, business to business. It's a business. It's business. No, it's humans interacting with humans. People buy from people. The purchasing agent is working with a selling agent in property. We're working, when I deal with, and I've sold, $20 million contracts for 5-year contracts, right? But it was still people dealing with people. We had to make sure that they understood us, and they didn't happen overnight. It took time. We were the higher cost for them, but the benefit outweighed, what they were getting. And this experience, like for you at the restaurant where you felt like you robbed them for $300 meal because you had so much there. They're adding that extra value, right? We had a program that nobody else had that can actually take wiring out of the car, because we could position different components in the vehicle so much where they took 15 pounds of wire out of a vehicle. Well, for an automotive company, 15 pounds is, that's like $50 a vehicle, just bare minimum. That's just on the wire. Well, that goes to their profit.
Yeah.
So ours was a little higher price for what we were offering, but we had this software package which would help them be more efficient, and they chose us. And it's just kind of what you're giving more benefit. There's more value there than just a price tag. And a lot of people, they want to get the cheapest price, but that's not always the best value for people. You get what you pay for is the old, adage that my dad used to say.
So how do you stay like focused? And I'm assuming that one maybe that you're talking about it probably wasn't like we got on the phone and next month, boom, we're done. How do you stay engaged or excited? And I think we've discovered for you that, like, obviously you're very self-driven. You're somebody who operates, but emotions do. I mean, they come in and they tell stories in your head. So how do you see through those ebbs and flows, especially on something that I'm imagining is, much more of a longer process in terms of securing the sale?
Yeah, the value of the sale is going to take longer. I mean, that $20 million deal, that was 3 years in the making. That wasn't overnight. Some of the smaller stuff, it's overnight. They call you up and they like your plant products or whatever it is, and they come in and buy it. That's why people go on Amazon. It's one click, right? Boom, it's there. There's a value of getting it faster, and I don't even have to go into a store. But you got to have that value. If there's no value there, then you're a commodity. So how are you adding that value for people? And a lot of it is that experience. What experience do they get when they deal with you? And if they don't get an experience, like go to McDonald's, that's why there's McDonald's, there's Wendy's, there's Burger King. But when you go to Five Guys and you get your burger that's like dripping in grease, right? And then you ask for the small fry and then they shove more fries into the bag. And when you get home, you're just like blown away. And you spent $45 to feed a family instead of the dollar menu, double cheeseburger at McDonald's and a fry, which would take like $12. There's that value there, and your perceived value, better quality. Everybody says I have better quality, but how can you quantify that, right?
Quality is totally subjective to the consumer.
Exactly. So the only thing you can quantify is dollars, right? So I always take everything off the dollar value. I always bring in the experience and the value. What time is a huge thing. What time can I save you by doing this? What kind of energy levels can I save you from buying my product instead of somebody else's? And you got to study everybody. You got to understand what's going on, because you don't want to lie to anybody. You don't want to misrepresent your stuff. But it is finding that value and that experience.
So in my mind, what's running is kind of, we've said a lot of specific things, but does maybe the way that a salesperson or an entrepreneur or, business development, anybody, I guess, you have to find the part of the chain where you believe in the value, and it's either you protecting the value, strengthening the value, proving value. Is it almost like, it's almost like some part of what you're doing, and your opening question, I'm trying to remember exactly how you said it, but you basically said that, the opening question of like, what really is what's your tingly I asked, what's your tingly feeling? And you're like, the process of adding value. And I'm like, that's not exciting. but it's, if it's the truth and it's your truth, then that's what's important, is that you have found. And so now I'm trying to just like, because I'm always saying, how do we take one to many? Is it somebody, even if it's narrow enough to sales, you have to believe enough in some level of value. I had 0% guilt selling a $36 plate of lasagna at the restaurant I worked at. 0% guilt. I had more guilt when I was working for a little time at this little barbecue spot selling like a $7 something. Because it was just like, listen, you want this lasagna? The meat is not ground beef. It's the trimmings off the end of the fillet that are braised. So you're going to get that earthiness coming through, the rich flavor. Like, you want this freaking lasagna. I'm telling you, I know you do. And so, very interesting perspective. I've never quite fully thought of it or saw it simply from that value. You got to find your value in, what am I trying to say? Rephrase what I'm trying to say.
What you're trying to say is you got to believe in your product, right? You have to believe that what you have to offer is going to help people. If you don't believe in it, you're not going to sell it. If you go into Apple right now, well, not right now, but if you go into Apple stores, those people are like committed. They would go and fight to the death saying that this Apple product is going to make your life better, right? They see that, and that is encouraging to them. When you go into, when I meet with anybody, whatever I sell, I have to believe in. It's great quality. It's going to help you because of X, Y, and Z. But again, it goes back into the heart. For me, my tingly feeling is I'm helping somebody get to a better place. I have sold people other products that I don't represent because I believe that would help them more than mine. And you know what happened is I would have those people calling me directly instead of, my customer, and saying, what do you think about this and this and this? I was gaining so much influence. I had like landscapers in Florida calling me, and I'm going, you need to work through your dealer. I'm a distributor rep. And they'd say, well, I trust you. And I had customers that would send me out because they trusted that I would sell, and I would sell all their products that I believed in. If they had something there that I didn't believe in, there wasn't getting talked about, and they knew it, but I was going to help them grow their business. If you can find your tingly feeling of whether it's helping people, giving them an experience, whatever that is, that's what you need to focus on, especially for keynote speakers. It's the engagement and seeing people go, oh my God, I got it. And seeing them light up. That's what drives most.
Yeah. And that's, so obviously the tingly feeling is something I talk about, and we've seen that it's only 4%, roughly 4% of our work time, which means that 90+% is grueling or unrewarding at times. And I love how you didn't do it on purpose per se, but you really just laid out that having this system and this process for your work, but the hard part is doing it for yourself and setting up those priorities. And, I've been working on setting up priorities for my growth time, for a time that I have called Josh time. I've been using this new software system called Notion, sponsored by Notion. Oh, that would be sweet. And it's like this huge dashboard. And so then I've been working on my schedule. So there's, for the consulting work, I'm not blocking out at the beginning of the week what I'm doing for all those hours, and I address that separately. But for before and after, it'll say, so I know for tonight is branding time. I've got an hour to work on my brand. And so I've gone in, and now when it's branding time, in the past, it would have been more like this. Oh my God, Tamsin did that webinar last week, and I watched only 20 minutes of it because I had a meeting, and it was so good. And I took some notes, and it was so amazing. And it was just, I would do nothing because I was like, oh, that was so good, but I got to watch it again. And maybe I'd watch it again. And that was it. Where now I'm trying to bring the volume of the noise down. And it's like, I think Tamsin's so smart. I like Tamsin. I listened to the beginning of this webinar. It was awesome. I need to carve out an hour of time to work on what it is that she talked about. And so in the past, I was always like running, like, what's next? What's next? I got to find it. And I've kind of been saying this lately. I told my wife a week ago, if I followed the end of the rainbow to the end and found a pot of gold, I'd be like, wow, I found it. And then my next thought would be, I got to go find another one. And it's like, right here at the end of this rainbow are all the resources that you already need to win and succeed, or at least improve, at least grow. And I think there's so much tendency to dismiss some of the things that you've talked about, some of the things that I'm experiencing right now as somebody who loves to shoot from the hip, but there's nothing that really replaces the feeling of, I think, of being able to set your own course. And if maybe I could, not that, this is what I love about the Fireside Chat. I'm just like, this is coming to the surface. It doesn't make sense, but it's the Fireside Chat. And it's almost just like chart your course or chart your way. And, you've been able to do that through sales and just learning the skill and the talent of being disciplined. So, Kevin, before we close this out, any final thoughts, anything else you'd like to share that's been intriguing you or interesting to you lately?
Yeah, well, I want to go back to the 4% of the tingly feeling, right? Everybody gets caught up in all the minutiae.
Oh, 9 minutes ago before I started talking.
Exactly. Back there, let's rein you back in. Really quick. So that 4%.
You're good.
That 4% that everybody gets keyed into. What if you reframed your day? You started your day out with a plan, so you're hitting in that sweet spot, and you move the needle to 10 or 12 or 25% of your day. You're driven on that. And that's where most of the successful entrepreneurs are laser focused. They go and focus on what is going to bring them the value and what's in their sweet spot. So again, you got to, it sucks to be disciplined, right? I want to eat cheesecake all day long or whatever. And, because Fat Kevin wants to come out and play. But you got to have that discipline, and you got to find stuff, whether it's this software package. I'm old school, and I write out my goals on a piece of paper every day because it's just my thing. But keeping yourself directed on what activities are going to help you, that's what's going to drive you.
Yeah.
So for
and
me,
slowing down enough to have the awareness of what it is, and then the consistency to follow it through regardless of how you're feeling.
yeah, and celebrate the wins.
Ooh.
Yeah. Right? You got to celebrate it. You hit that pot of gold. Dude, go buy something small, like maybe it's a Tesla if you hit the really big pot of gold, right? Or
the Tesla that's got 0 miles in the last 3 months.
yeah, well, saving you on your energy costs. But it's you celebrate those wins, and even if you have a setback, what thing out of that did you grow from? Okay, me being a ballroom dancer is probably not going to happen. I took some ballroom dancing lessons. What did I learn? Well, I can make my wife happy by doing some of the things she likes doing, right? So it's always trying to find, I guess I'm a positive thinker or whatever, even though I'm an engineer. But you got to sit there and focus on the positives, celebrate those wins, and keep driving forward. And if you got to make a change, of course, no missile ever goes straight. It's bouncing up and down, sideways, and correcting and going to hit its target. So but it is laser focused. They use lasers to guide them. So
that's good.
Yeah. So you gotta,
even though it's
do that.
laser focused, it's still getting off track.
Yeah. There's wind that's affecting it. There's gravitational pull that's affecting it. There's the, how much of the force of the, the engine that's pushing it.
Yeah.
It's being moved and it's having to correct.
Oh, that's good.
I'm glad I can add one value.
So good. Thank you again so much for taking the time. We'll link up the courses. We'll link up the book, website, LinkedIn. We'll have everybody reach out to you and, just connect, follow you for the weekly blog. Thank you again so much for taking the time, for sharing, and coming on the Fireside Chat.
It's been fun. Thanks.